Good morning. And we want to welcome you to our Wednesday morning class coming to you from HeartLight Spiritual Center. And for you that are out of Charlotte and out of state, here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we want to welcome you. This is our second class of the new year, and we are doing our best to begin to understand a little bit about the dimensions. And when we understand dimensions, what that gives us is options. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad we have some options to the dimension in which we're living here every day. Because it's a dimension about breakdown. And we're living the breakdown. And I need to remind all of us, including myself, that what faith tells us is that we are not people of accidents living at this time, but we are people of assignment. And our assignment to live through this time was recorded in our DNA before we came. And when I tell you about my experience of living 4 lifetimes in this one, in an in-between life experience that I had, and I won't go into the whole story, but it was just a time in which I was seeking some of my human idiosyncrasies, the human side, the lower part of ourselves, the place where attributes of ego live, like fear and anxiety, depression, lack of faith, doubt, and all that kind of is a dimension in all human beings. Fear is a very prevalent, accessible emotion in third dimension. It's easy to be fearful. You don't have to work at it. There's plenty to make you fearful of what's going on now. And of course, what we call the call, some call the clarion call, is the call to come up higher. And that means that those who are experiencing the 3D, such as ourselves, at the same time we're experiencing, are called to come up higher and raise our vibration to connect more with 5D while going through the 3D experience. Take that in. And of course, I go back to my pattern, which is the teacher, okay? Whatever you choose to call him, but the teacher of 2,000 years ago, which represents metaphysically the point in consciousness in which we know our own divinity, has incarnated into the human experience. That's the story of 2,000 years ago. And that's why they hated the teacher, Jesus, because he declared to be God made manifest in the human experience. And there's still people that hate that. There's still people who do not believe that human beings are divine. And therefore they teach what is called human enlightenment. Now, as much as I have dabbled into Buddhism and the life of Buddha, which I love, and there's such wonderful documentaries about Buddha's life that's on Netflix and all those. I love all that. I love people's history. I watch Mozart, I watch Beethoven, I want to know where they came from, what they went through, and none of them had a really good ride to the point of their gifts and their contributions. They went through the travail, I call it the travail, to birth it. And I'm sorry, but you and I are not going to miss that travail to birth ourselves into this new dimension. We have to go through the travail. Travail is always before the birth, as crises is always before the transformation, and breakdown is always before the breakthrough. That's just the way it is. Sunday, I'm going to be speaking on what we chose as a saying here, bridging the gap. That's one of the messages I want to repeat that I've chosen for this Sunday, is our position in the gap between two worlds, a dying world and a birthing new earth world. We're living it. And that means that probably your emotional experiences is very intensified, even moody. You'll find yourself on highs and you'll find yourself on lows. You're either going to be really elated and really hopeful and high and whatever, and then maybe in an hour or two or the next day you're going to find yourself down in the valley of despair. I want you to know that's normal for the time that you're living in. It's not easy to balance what's dying in you and what's birthing in you. Are you with me? And a lot of what we thought we didn't like, that was the old norm, now we look back at something good because things have appeared to get worse. So now we think about the better days. But if you'll stop and think about the better days, you were looking for even a better day to get out of that day. Right? So we are standing, the Bible puts it this way, who shall stand in the gap and make up the hedge? It's a question. Who among us will step up and say, I will live out and bridge this time of death and birth? And that's what we're trying to learn here at HeartLight and prepare ourselves for. How can we stay in those two experiences of a 3D that's dying, going through 4D, but tapping into 5D. So we got 3, 4, and 5 going on right now. Right? And we'll talk some about that as it happens. So the teacher made an interesting statement in the written, in the interpretation. Again, I don't know what he said in English, but we interpret it in English as him saying, for the Son of Man is in heaven. But when he said that, he was in earth. He didn't go anywhere to say that he was in heaven. He stayed right on the earth in 3D, but said, my consciousness is not a 3D, it's a 5D and on. And that's what made him so unique and different. That's why he did miracles. They weren't miracles. They were just, he saw the person and saw them in a 5D position, which was above the illness, the sickness, and the disease they had, and therefore it manifested like it was a miracle. But it's because he understood options. There's an option to your disease. There's an option to even old age. There's an option to death. There's an option to anything that you're going through. There's options. You don't have to pitch your tent there. Now, why am I using that language? Of course, this is my Bible language. But when the children of Israel left Egypt, let's say Egypt represents 1, 2, 3D. They go into the desert, 4D. And they're heading for 5D, the promised land, where the milk and the honey flows, their destiny. Okay? So that's the journey they made, and the Bible is very clear to say what they did are examples for us. That's in the Bible. And that's why I keep referring back to this journey of Israel out of bondage, out of Egypt, which is the Hebrew word that is close to the word for misery. So it's not Egypt over there that I'm looking at, it's the Egypt in us. And we can leave that. But he was teaching us that we can be in 3D and not always of 5D. I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world. And he said, all right, if you will follow me, I'm the way to show you how you can do this too, because I was successful doing it. Why would you not want to look at somebody who was successful to overcome all 3D attributes of aging, death, sickness, disease, anything that you can name that is a challenge in 3D? He ascended it. And what did he leave us? A way we can do it. Isn't that great? So please don't throw out somebody who was successful. Now, what I was saying about Buddha is, as much as I love the story of Buddha and how he reached enlightenment, he never saw it as finding his deity. Buddhism does not recognize deity. It just has human enlightenment. And that's what Buddha attained, was human enlightenment. 500, 600 years later, Yeshua, Jesus, comes along and gives us more than Buddha's human enlightenment through reincarnation. Oh, wow. See? Because that's what Buddha put us on the wheel of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. And Jesus came along and said, but my teaching is going to be not about human enlightenment, but it's about awakening the divine in you. So he became the first story of incarnation of the divinity into the human experience, or using Course in Miracles, the human dream, the world. Ooh, I didn't mean to get into all this, but this is so good to me. And to understand this, and Jesus came to taketh away the sin of the world. In other words, all of the karmic debt of 3D, he forgave 2,000 years ago and released us. 2,000 years ago, if they would have really listened to his teaching and applied his teaching before they took it and made a religion out of it, are you with me? His teaching would be very different than the way they teach it now in his name. Because they don't teach his teaching, they teach their dogma about his teaching. So his teachings got lost for a long, long time. Now they've been rediscovered in such things as the lost books of the Bible, the book of Thomas, all of those things that were found. In our time, most of us sitting here was living in 1945, 47. But we were living at a time that these 72 jars were found with all these scrolls of information that had sometime escaped thousands of years of men's interpretations. And if you read those things, you will hear a different teaching from Jesus that you read in the Bible. And that's why the Bible has to be interpreted spiritually and metaphysically, because you got to get through the veil of doctrine and dogma of religion to get to the inner teachings. And here's a scripture that's so good to say that. My word, I want you to get this. My words are in the parable. The word isn't the parable. It's not in the letter of what you read in the book. It's you got to get into it. You got to break the code. And that's kind of what I'm doing for you guys with Bible stuff, is I'm breaking the code of that verse from what religion said it was to what it was within the language and the culture, and then to what Spirit had to say. That's the truth you want to get to, is the Spirit of truth. And it's only the Spirit of truth that'll make you free. Make you free from what? Illusion of 3D. It'll make you free from all your incarnations in 3D. You don't have to keep coming back in linear time and space, because now in the last 150 years, we went into a deeper level in which we found a quantum world that was a more subtle world than the world that you and I see through the five senses. And that changed everything. It really brought in a new physicist. Physicists. Not physics, but physicists. Physicist means, we would use the word ether, the realm of the spirit of things. See, Aristotle and Plato and all of them, they say there was 4 elements. There's earth, water, fire, air. And then somebody came along and said, no, there's a 5th one. It's called the quintessence. And that's what they named ether. And we made spirit out of it, and he called it physis. Now get this. That means at one time, the realms of spirit and the physical were the same thing. They weren't separate. They were physis. And then as time went on into 3D, what did we do? Divide the poles. This is what you're dealing with right now, is these thousands of years of dividing the poles of the polarities of yin yang, spirit, earth, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden we had a God, we had a devil, we had righteousness, and we had sin. And we just kept breaking it down, this dark and light, yin and yang, male and female. Everything began to be not two polarities working together, but two polarities pushing away from each other. And the further they got, the more they resisted each other, because they lost the magnetism that pulled them together, and we're living that today. Wow. Hope that makes some sense to you. I often wonder what you hear when I say these things, but may you receive it by the Spirit into the higher part of yourself. Anybody want to ask any question about anything I just said? I'm more than glad to do it. Yes, Rhonda?
So it occurred to me as you were talking about the Jesus and his 5D experiences and the way he could access 5D and that kind of thing. And so I found myself writing that what we know as miracles must be a brief channeling of 5D brought down.
Perfectly said. That's all a miracle is. It is the tapping in of 5D principles and divine spiritual law of 5D into 3D. And in some cases that raises the vibration out of 3D to 5D as a match, and then therefore what was in 3D is dissolved. And that's called a healing. You want to dissolve your cancer. You want to dissolve your this, that, and another. And dissolve it is to bring it into a 5D where there is no law of its existence. And therefore it is dissipated and you're under a different spiritual law. Great scripture. I'm going to give it to you. Romans 8, I believe. Therefore we are free from the law of sin and death by the law of the Spirit of life in Christ. Isn't that good? So the only thing that frees you from the law of third dimension, right, is a new law. And that's the law of 5D, which sets us free from the law of 3D to move into 5D. So Jesus was here going back and forth. 5D raised the dead. 5D healed the blind. 5D healed the cripple, leper. All those kind of things was just tapping and bringing 5D into a 3D, raising the frequency to a different reality. But finally, what's so cool is he finally left 3D completely and made his residence in 5D beyond. Then he comes back and says, I made it. I did it. It is finished. It's victorious. You can do it. I did it. And now I'm going to show you how to do it. Because I want you to join me. There's a place in the parables about Jesus that said he's a seed, but he does not want to abide alone, but he wants to bring forth much fruit after his own kind. They wouldn't talk about Christians. See, that's what the world has brought forth in his name and teachings is Christianity. But not their identity is the Christ. See, the ego's substitution for being the Christ incarnated is to become a Christian, an outside label of ego. That's why here we don't do well with labels. I don't know how to label me. Because the minute I do and I take on a label from out there, I'm taking on a 3D identity. So the fact that I have some access to a 5D experience, which I've been doing for decades. I mean, I started this whole idea of vibration and moving to a different dimension over 30 years ago. This is not a new teaching to me. It's just that right now it's caught on. I hardly hear anybody. I was listening to somebody on the radio last night, some spiritual person. She kept talking about 3D and 5D. It's just everywhere. Anybody that's a teacher out there, a major teacher, is talking about 3D, 5D. That means it's entered into the collective consciousness, and it's ready now to be taught because there is a consciousness to receive it. Because you can't receive a teaching, you don't have a consciousness to receive. Wow. So this is a very interesting, powerful time that you and I are living at this crossroads of what is dying and what is birthing. Okay. We learned last week, real quickly, that this plan, now this plan is called in the Bible the plan of the ages. That means that divine creator, divine intelligence. You know, one of the acronyms I love for God, G-O-D, is Grand Organizer Designer. G-O-D, Grand Organizing Designer. So when people say, I don't believe in creation, I don't believe in that, I don't believe in evolution, what's crazy about that to me is what was driving the evolution. Some intelligence had to be in the evolution of things. So how can you separate evolution and creation? Again, a 3D pole separation. Huh? The deal they made with the ego, whether they know it or not, is okay, religion, we're going to give you the soul. Science, we're going to give you the body. They divvied up. And now we are dealing with those polarizations because of the new intensity of four-dimension electromagnetics that is intensifying everything we have miscreated. Unfortunately, we, as human beings, were not at a level to create a world. Therefore, we miscreated a world. The world you live in is the miscreation of humanity. Now, I'm not talking about nature and all that. That's kind of fourth dimensional kind of thing. But I'm talking about fifth dimensional issues that we're dealing with now. Pandemics, sicknesses, illness. The way we die is horrible in 3D. The dying process is not fun for the majority of people. There's a lot of things about 3D that has come to bite us in the butt because we created it. But you know what the ego wants to do? Project it. It's them. They did it. It's because of them. Because until there's a people that have growing up last Sunday, has grown up enough to take the responsibility that we, individually and collectively, has created a miscreated world that is not what he refers to as the kingdom of God on earth. What are you saying when you say, let it be done on earth as it is in heaven? You're saying, let fifth dimension be done on earth just as it is in the fifth dimension. Let it be done on earth just as it is in heaven. These are just words of symbolisms. One more thing, and the teacher says, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, now you talk about a fifth dimensional term, I am, that where I am, ye may be also. The Course of Miracles says that Jesus went on just beyond the carpet of time to wait for all the sonship to join him before he goes into the Father. So that's exactly, he's waiting for you and I. He's trying to partner with us and say, I did it. Now I've opened a portal in a way you can do it. And when enough of us has joined him in 5D, we will flip all of 3, 2, and 1. You know what it says? And they shall be caught up in the air to meet him. My church took that literally, called the doctrine of the rapture. That people are literally going to go flying off into the sky to meet Jesus out in the sky somewhere. But that's not what he's saying. Air there is pneuma, spirit, life force. It says when those who are with him come back into 3D collectively, they will shift everybody left in 3D to their next level, because nothing shall be left out. Don't think that there's some special elite that's going to make it while the others don't. It's just people have to make a mature choice of what option they want to be on. Which one of these dimensions do you want to operate on? Unfortunately, a lot of people are choosing to stay in the 3D as the only reality. You and I are here to choose differently. As the chorus says, choose again. I hope you get all this. I know I'm not into what I want to get into, but I'm still laying a foundation this first few weeks. Just trying to give you a foundation. So anything about that? Anybody want to clarify or say? So the plan, the plan of the ages. Again, I'm referring back to the fact there's an intelligence that transcends time and space, future, past, present, and sees things as they truly are in creation. So much I want to say. I keep coming back to using Jesus again, but as I've told you before, when Jesus did all that 2,000 years ago, which was awaken the consciousness to the incarnation of God into the human experience for the first time. There's nobody in the Old Testament that ever said God was in them. It was always the old man out there. Yeah. Yahweh, Jehovah, the old guy in the sky, right? And Jesus said, no, my Father is in me. First time. Nobody had ever used the term Father until it's used by Jesus as Abba. That's the word was used, Abba. Means father or daddy. Who's your daddy? Yeah. But that's the word Abba. But nobody called this source Father until Jesus discovered it. And you know what he said? My Father seeks you to worship in spirit and truth. Okay? So, he said, according to the interpretation, what I have done and accomplished is not going to be understood in collective human consciousness for 2 days. Are you with me? What does that mean? You that have heard me talk about this before. When Jesus says you'll not get it for 2 days. 2,000 years. Excellent. Yay. And we get that from a year. A day is 1,000 years in the book of Psalms. A day is 1,000 years with the Lord. So God runs on different seasons, or times called seasons. You know, there's a season to love. There's a season to die. There's a season to weep. There's a season to rejoice. All of that kind of thing like that. So Jesus knew it was going to be 2,000 years by the time he lived here and did this before there would be enough collective consciousness to receive his experience. And you and I have entered in now toward the 3rd year, 1,000 year. We've lived the 2,000 year, which, by the way, kind of goes with the idea of the shift astrologically from the Piscean to the Aquarian age too. So a lot of huge, intense shifts going on right now. And you've got to be, you whether you know it or not, you're feeling it. You're feeling all this heavy stuff that's going on in these shifts. That means even death is intensified. Life is intensified. Racism is intensified. Huh? All the things of the poles that have divided so much in 3D are now coming up in the intensifying of 4D to be healed and balanced so they can become a part of 5D. Wow. So the more we understand how to navigate between 1, 2, and 3, or 3, 4, and 5, the better we're going to do. And not get knocked out consciously. Then he said, but on the third day, I'm going to raise you up. Wow, that's so good. That means after the 2,000 years, when there's enough that get it, I will raise their vibratory frequency to have access to the place in which I am and have attained. And all of a sudden, you start having more access to 5D while going through the 3D experience. Now, I feel challenged right now with what's going on with me, whether it's mental, physical, I don't care what level it's going. Think of all the dimensions in your life. You got a financial dimension, you got a health dimension, you got your family to deal with, you got all kinds of dimensions in 3D that you have to deal with. But there's options. There's options. I know we all feel this genetic blood connection with our family, but you know what? If you have planted yourself in a spiritual family, then your earthly family will start fitting in differently, and they'll no longer be the all of your life, but they will fit in to where they are as your ancestral DNA family. But now you're a part of a family of 5D. See? And that's what the community is about. That's really what the community is about. That's the building of the community. That you can be supported, you can be free to really tune in more and more to your 5D dimension and level. So there was a plan, is what I'm telling you. Somehow this intelligence saw that mankind, when it got to this earth, was going to misuse its power through free will. The minute a human soul comes in through 1D, 2D, which we're going to try to talk about, because 1D is the core of the earth. It is the iron core crystal that's in the earth that when the earth spins, it brings things into manifestation according to the spin of the earth and the core, the iron core. 2D is on the earth, that's the surface of the earth. 3D is the human realm. So you have the core of the earth that's really connected to the black hole of the galaxy. We'll get into that sometime. Then you have what's on the earth, which before us was viruses, bacteria, plants, and rocks, and all that kind of 2D. And then out of that came the 3D human. And when you are incarnated in 3D Gaia, you enter a very unique zone called a free will zone planet. That's why Earth, as insignificant as it seems in the scheme of the galaxy and of the universe and the universes, I mean, it's practically nothing compared to the vastness of what we have discovered in the last few hundred years. Billions of stars, billions of galaxies. I mean, think about the time of coming from 9 planets in which the sun was going around. That wasn't that long ago that Galileo and all of them was trying to dispute this kind of teaching. Or flat earth, that if you look out over the ocean and you went too far, you'd fall off the earth because the earth is flat. Now there's still people there's a movement out there called the flat earth people. I don't know what that's about, but whatever. I'm not going to judge it. Be there till you're not. But it does look like that when you look at the horizon of the earth, like it just drops off. So look how far we've come now to multiple universes from that time in just 100 years. We've moved very fast. And someday I'll get into that, why it's been so fast. It's because of beyond earth intelligence. We will touch into that at some point. That's why technology has just boomed, and it's fast. is because that's not coming from our evolution of 3D human. It is coming from our connection with other beings that are coming in on higher dimensions, planets, whatever you want, that are more advanced in technology than we were. But they wanted what we had, and we wanted what they had, and there was an exchange made, and that's what's getting ready to come out all over the place, and is coming out now through governments and through pilots and through astronauts and others who have experienced beings beyond the realm of 3D Earth.
What do we have that they want?
Emotion, feeling, love. Yes, they have nothing like that. As brilliant as they are, as much as they have engineered DNA genetic engineering, they've got all this stuff that we're just learning they have. But they didn't have a soul. Oh my goodness, how did I get in this? And this is why people have to be careful who get into a state, a deep state of depression, don't want to live anymore, taking it out in abusive alcohol and drugs. When you do that, you open yourself in for a walk-in. Oh my goodness, what is wrong with me?
Well, tell us what a walk-in is.
Well, I'll tell you experience. I had a wonderful, before Tim came along, I had a wonderful co-creative partner in my life, Brenda Jacks. Met in Little Rock, Arkansas back in the 70s. She was a wonderful minister, wrote some of the songs I sing up here. You hear me sometimes. We co-pastored together. We had the first wedding chapel in Little Rock, Arkansas back in the 70s. She wrote books for me. She really did wonderful things. Very spiritual. Came from the background I did of, the fundamentalist Pentecostal church and the Holy Spirit. Loved God, all that kind of thing. And she went through a very difficult psychological time. And in that time, she really began to lose a lot of her faith. She became disillusioned that nothing was working out for her anymore. She didn't know if she believed it. Just crazy stuff started happening to her. She took a trip to take somebody from Indianapolis to Chicago to an airport. Oh, well, I'm telling you this. And coming back, she decided to stop at a rest area. And the next thing she knew, she woke up in an ambulance, bruised. And she had her purse. Nobody took anything out of her purse. She wasn't robbed. They don't know what happened to her. But when she got out of that, she was a different person. She started gravitating toward drugs, smoking, sexual addiction, everything that she was not, that I knew, she had become. And we all continued to love her and work with her. It wasn't until recently at her passing that she began to open up just a little bit, but she never got back to where she was. And I said, oh my God, she is a walk-in. Now let me tell you about walk-in. Since I got myself into this, bless you who are out there listening today. I hope you're realizing I have no control today. I just don't feel like having control. It's a spirit move. A walk-in would be like a suicide. That's not a way to leave, is through a suicide. Suicides often are confused and are stuck between the earth and the spirit world. They get stuck in kind of a 4D experience. There's a wonderful movie, in fact, it's on Netflix or one of them, called Dreams That May Come. Oh my God, see it. See it. It's Robin Williams. Robin Williams. It's well worth seeing that, but it's about it.
Dreams That May Come.
Yeah, Dreams That May Come.
Robin Williams.
Please see it. It's a tremendous movie about his death of his children, his wife, and the wife commits suicide, and where he goes and visits them where they went to after death. It's amazing. It's an amazing movie. I'm not sure which one it's on, but it's one of the Netflix or Prime or Hulu.
So you're not sure it's Netflix?
No, but you can put it in. And another thing when I got this that happened is the movie Poltergeist came out. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
About those Native American spirits that were earthbound because they were building on their ancestral burial grounds. Yeah. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I'm seeing here. That's happening. So you have beings that leave the body. It could also be someone who has a very quick death in an accident or something, and they're confused exactly where they are. Because right or wrong, good or bad, I believe that people leave the body at the level of consciousness they attained while in the body. If people lives a low body consciousness of pain and torment and whatever, I think that's their hell. It's existential. Hell is what we make it to be. I don't mean you stay in hell, but there's some people that may go into a state of what they had in this realm. So heaven's not just some big room over there we're all thrown into, because in my Father's house are many mansions. You hear it? Many rooms, many dwelling places is the translation. So you got loved ones and people who have transitioned are in all different kinds of spiritual places to what they need to learn to graduate. This doesn't stop whether in the body or out of the body. It doesn't matter. You're always in the state of evolving your consciousness. It's kind of coded in the term, where the tree shall fall, so shall it lay. That's a scripture. Where the tree falls, so shall it lay. Where the consciousness is in the person, that's the level they go out. And what they did not do in the body, they'll either do it by choosing reincarnation. That's an option. It's not everybody's going to reincarnate, because if you don't choose to reincarnate, you'll stay over in the non-physical realm and learn slower. A lot of people want to come back because they want to use time and space of the physical third dimension body to grow faster and learn faster. And that makes the answer why people will come back even in a handicapped body. To them, that's all maybe they need. Or a baby that doesn't live a few hours or a month or 2 months or 3 months. All that baby needed to finish up maybe was just that length of time. So it needed a third dimensional body to get it done, and it lays it down. Whoa, what's wrong with me today? Wow. Any of that resonate with you? Contemplate it, yeah. See, there are answers. And the answers are coming to 5D about 3D, because we was trying to get the answers to 3D on 3D. On the very dimension that has miscreated these mysteries that we don't understand in 3D is not going to be solved in 3D. What does Einstein call it? Insanity to think so.
Spooky science.
Hooky science. Pooky. I like pooky. Yeah, spooky is what Einstein called it. So a lot of our answers in 3D is going to be given when 5D starts trickling down into 3D, and then you're going to have those 5D epiphanies. I get it. Oh, I never understood that. I couldn't figure that out, but I get it now. Yes?
Okay, so back to what you were saying for just a little bit back about reincarnation as an option, which allows movement in consciousness when they come back, and they might need just a very short period of time or whatever. But talk about the disabilities, because that's not necessarily a short period of time. How would that fit into this?
I don't know that I have a 100% answer for that.
No,
That's
a thing of mine.
yeah, that's certainly something that is a somewhat of a mystery at this point that I don't know that I have an answer for. But some people you don't realize it, but some people we see in that state are doing great spiritual work.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen
You know, if you remember Nicole, the daughter of Rick and Deb, they knew there was very spiritual work being done in that child, because she should not have lived near as long as she did. But I believe that she was all the time working in the spiritual realm from that physical body. Now that's just my belief. Because I'm trying to make sense like everybody else. Why would somebody remain in that situation like that? Let's all take a deep breath.
When you're talking about she's working in the spiritual realm in that body, what exactly does that mean? I'm a little lost.
Well, it means her spirit was in another dimension. It wasn't what we saw in the body, but her spirit was working in other dimensions.
So maybe
happening.
the spirit was so busy being in another dimension that it wasn't able to run the body the way we're used to seeing it.
Right.
That's what I'm taking out of it.
That's a good way to look at it, yeah. I just can't believe that is as it appears to be, is all I'm saying to you. I don't want to see it as that appears to be, because if I look at it from a third dimension lens, I'm going to wonder, okay, God, where are you? Why would you do this to this child? All of that stuff that goes on in people's head, saying why, and what kind of God would allow this? How can your God do this, and whatever? There has to be a better way to look at that, and that is what raising consciousness is doing. I don't know that we're fully there, but we're certainly at a higher.
Well, I also,
Nothing is too much to ask of us.
Yes, that's true.
well, I also think that sometimes that
Oh my goodness.
those folks are there for the ones around them to be elevated.
Yeah. All right, well, let's just see what spirit comes through more about that, and we open up to these. The point is, I'm trying to say, is this intelligence that you call God or source or whatever you call it is a consciousness. Is a consciousness. It's not an old man in the sky. It is a consciousness. And if you remember, my definition of God is what? Anybody?
Local,
Non?
gosh.
What is it?
Local,
A non-local, non-definable
undefined.
consciousness interacting with itself. God is a non-local. Why? Because it's everywhere at the same time. We call it omnipresent. So where are you going to locate it? Because it's totally above time and space. There's no space to it, unless it comes into time space, which is what you're about, and why it incarnates into your body, because your body's in time and space, and it can use the time and space you give it to help to evolve man from its lower dimensions into the higher dimension.
Non-local, non-definable.
Okay, it's a non-local, non-definable. How do you define something has no beginning and no end? Birth or death? I'm sorry. The word God, universe, Father, source is pretty good. I like it better because it's more an abstract word than Father, because all fathers have a beginning. Nothing is a father of itself. Something has to make it a father or a mother. Every one of you that are mothers sitting here, that's not your beginning. You had a life before you had a child. But you became a mother because of the offspring, in your offspring. So it is undefinable. It is non-local. It is a consciousness or intelligence that wants to interact with itself. The key word here is itself is you, the true you. The core you, spiritual you, divine you. You are it having a relationship with itself. So, there is a plan. Whether we would have stayed with the light Elohims and fulfilled God's divine plan on the earth, or if we chose to go to the darker side, in which we chose to be a God unto ourselves and cut ourselves off from source to become the source, which is what has happened on the earth, is the human took over the earth and unplugged from its source. And that's the greatest polarity separation that took place on the earth, is from those that came in to do and be the administrators of the true Creator. I want you to get that. That's important. And that's what's called year gods. This term that's so powerful. John 10, Jesus said to the disciples, don't you remember, even your law says ye are gods, whom the ends of the world have come upon. You're gods. And what he was quoting was Psalms 82 that says, know ye not ye are gods, and are the children of Elion the Most High? Why do you lay down and die like the princes of this world? Because that's not who I created you to be. I created you to be something completely different than you've become. So the gap is in what is and what we've become. We've not become what we are. We've become something else. We become what the world told us. Culture, religion, science, education. All these three-dimensional systems of thinking has molded us and formed us into a self we were not created to be. And the more of that we have laid with, it's called, because what you lay with, you become one flesh with, the Bible says. And it's using the harlot here, which is the harlot system. So if you lay with your body, you become your body. Everybody get that, don't you? How many people out there think they are their body? Yeah. So if you lay with your body, you become your body. But if you don't, you stay over here as a spiritual identity, you'll remain your spiritual identity and still be in the body, but not identify as the body as your reality. Which is a lot of what Course in Miracles helps us with. To see ourselves beyond the identity of the body, which is the ego domain, and the divine domain. Both exist in the physical realm. And I've covered that with you, how the soul split itself. Part of the soul went with the body, part of it stayed with the spirit. And that's why we're double-minded and unstable in our ways. That's a scripture. We are double-minded, are double-souled, are two different thinking systems. One's based on fear, one's based on love, one's based on I am one with God, I am one with the God in you. Two, I am separate from you, you're not me, you're not me. And what comes out of this? Racism, prejudice, and everything that separates every one of us comes from this system. And this system has not been lost, but it's been suppressed into 1D and 2D into the inner earth of our being. And that's why Jesus had to go into the depths of the earth and call it out and awakened the divine in us. The divine in us. Oh my goodness, my time is gone. I haven't even started. I hope some of this is making some sense to you. I still am trying to lay a foundation here. A new foundation for a new earth. Forget the new earth until you get a good foundation. You want the new foundation for the earth. You want the blueprint of the earth. So,
does this make any sense? We got a text from Sue saying,
what?
does this make any sense? We got a text in the middle from Sue saying, what dreams may come. Is that a movie you were looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
What dreams may come. Did I say it wrong? You'll find it. Okay, quickly, the last few minutes. The plan that has been reserved for the time to restore us back to our higher fifth dimension principles and beyond began at the harmonic conversion in 1987. Did anybody know about that in 87? You did? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was all over the world. It was huge that people were together on, I believe it was August 16th, 1987. And I know I had my staff and all my people meet in the park at 5 o'clock in the morning just to hold hands, and I had no idea what this meant. I was just told, be a part of it. connect into this new collective consciousness that was coming together at this time, because this coming together would put in practice the plan. So the plan was activated in 1987.
I believe Gervais Phillips did that.
Probably so.
At Unity of Charlotte.
That's very possible. I could see that happening with unity churches and what else like that.
Got up early.
Okay. Then we move forward to March 21st in about 1996. At the spring equinox, the call went out, cleared for the plan to be initiated in 1987.
You mean 1996?
1996, sorry. So from 1987 to 1996, and the first part of the plan was called Recoding DNA. That was the first part of the plan that was activated, was going to be working with human DNA.
And that's when we really discovered that we could track DNA.
At that time, the Genome Project was going on. Clinton was on as president on television, talking about how fast it was going. Is the decoding of the genetic the DNA, and then around that time we just started hearing constantly DNA testing, DNA research, DNA this, trials. We're talking about DNA. Everything was changed as DNA came into the collective consciousness. Where did it come out of? Here's a way of showing you how it comes to 4 or 5 out of 3, is because in 3 it only belonged to the geneticists. Only they dealt with DNA. We had no interest in DNA because that's not our academia. That was not our training. That was not our degree. That's not the path that we took. So therefore, only those separate beings were dealing with that kind of thing. But around 87, it had entered into the collective consciousness, and people started hearing and talking about DNA. I was one of those. As I've told you, it's at that time, during those years of transmission on the earth, that I heard the words deoxyribonucleic acid. Exactly at that time. I did not even know how to say it. I did know it was the technical name for DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid. That's what it's called. I had to learn to say that. But I thought I heard it. But my brain said, I've never learned it. Feel that. And at that moment, the brain got knocked off its pedestal and throne of being the only power of thinking, and had to submit to a greater part of intelligence called the inner mind or consciousness. And the brain had to learn something instead of being the source of all knowledge. Our time's up. Wow. I'm not going to apologize. I guess these things need to be said. I'm still laying a foundation. I think for us to go on into this deeper knowledge that we're heading for, that if we don't have a good foundation with it, it's just not going to stick. So I'm still cleaning up 3D. That's what I'm doing today. I'm trying to clean up and correct a lot of old religious things that have really seeped into metaphysics and New Thought also. Some of these, they're not pure spirit. There's a mixture. I mean, even the fact that some of the New Thought took on the idea of the word Christian.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'm not crazy about that.
Yeah. Well, what's the term they call it?
Practical.
Practical Christianity.
That's what unity
Now,
is.
it definitely was a step in the right direction to go that way, but it really wanted to stay within the confinement of Christianity and be metaphysical rather than coming out of a third dimensional label. They stuck the third dimension label in it so it'd be more connected to people,
Right.
to grow. And that's probably why we're not just flooding here with new people, is because we really are not giving them much to hold on to.
We're not using the word Christian.
Yeah, so all that happened. So, we're going to talk about how this is all going to come together. I promise you we're going to get into this. I had such good things today about the iron in our blood, and we're going to talk about it and consciousness. And this is truly a class for the student of commitment, the student to learn and to do those three things that I told you last week. When you hear a speaker such as myself, there's three things that should go on. I don't know if anybody would remember them or not, but
Oh, yeah, I wrote them down.
the first thing,
Confirm.
validation.
Validation.
Confirm, yeah. So some of you are already hearing your own stuff. You that are meditating, you that are turning your phone off, the TV off for long enough to get still and quiet, you may start hearing and having some interesting thoughts about things. Someone like me, our intention is to come along and help you put those thoughts into a consciousness that you can receive on a personal level and get it. Because I don't think everybody understands what they're hearing. So I can give you validation and go, oh, that's what it is Spirit's trying to tell me. The second thing is correction. Correcting old third-dimensional constructs, beliefs that are no longer serving you in your journey, and you're retuning and recoding to a 4 or 5 dimension. And when I say 5, when you get into 5, you have access to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I'll try to do that. I had a thing, but I'll do it next week and give you a handout to show you how this all kind of works and what we're living in right now. The third thing, and I got to quit. The third thing is learning something new completely. New knowledge coming from fifth dimension photon information that is not a part of your third dimensional teaching. Okay? So you validate, contemplate, and qualify. And as soon as you qualify this information coming in with a different dimension than 3D knowledge, it'll start raising your belief system, which will raise the vibration of cellular replication. And that's how we get our bodies out of 3D. And we really need to work on that, people, before old age, disease, sickness, and death of 3 dimension gets us. If we choose to do that. Now, some are going to be used on the other side. That's why they're making their transition, because we got to have both sides going. They're called the cloud of witnesses. There are those that are behind the veil, choosing not to incarnate, but to work with us. They become our new 100% angels and guides. We don't always have to use the old system. It doesn't always have to be Gabriel. Doesn't always have to be Michael. Doesn't have to be these ones we've heard of for thousands of years, because a whole new set's coming in from the other side.
Awesome.
Which can include even some of your ancestors, if some of your ancestors have chosen to grow and to mature into fifth dimensional consciousness, they also can be called in and show up in dreams and things like that. Let's take a moment. Wow. Holy Spirit, I just have to acknowledge you as the guide to lead us through and help us to navigate through this time, through the teachings and the information that comes through to us. For everything that is said today holds the finishing of a third dimensional frequency and a higher fifth dimension frequency at the same time. So not only do we learn something new, it raises our consciousness. We thank you and we look to you to continue to teach us, lead us, correct us, validate us, that we can become more and more a part of the universal mind of the Christ consciousness in the earth. Bless those that are here in person, bless those that are joining us online, and those that may catch us later. And I want to say to you that are online with us, we'd love to hear from you. It'd be great if you'd have some connection with us. Let us know what's going on with you, what you're hearing. If you have any questions, you can send it to us and email it to us. And most of all, support. Support. Right now is a time that if we've ever stepped up to keep spaces like this and ministries like this going, it is now. So we ask for your support. Let's take a deep breath. Exhale. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and return back. Okay. I'm more than glad to... Tim, are we off?